Hi, my name is Patrick Reagan. Welcome to Security, where we discuss security with a focus on how it affects the computer and the services and resources that the computer connects to. In Part 10, PC Security Best Practices, focus what steps you need to help strengthen the security of a desktop or laptop computer. Topics include the RunAs options, user access control, login restrictions, disk encryption, software updates, and hardening options. For those who are going to take the A+ exam, there are practice questions at the end of the video. If you have not already, subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel. The BIOS setup program has the following passwords. Admin setup option has password required to access BIOS setup program. User password option has password required to boot the computer. You should enable the admin setup option so that unauthorized people will not make any changes to the BIOS setup program. You can also consider enabling the user password option so that appears when you first turn on the computer before the operating system is loaded. You should configure the BIOS setup program to boot directly to the hard drive without trying to boot from USB or optical drives. This prevents someone to boot another operating system in an attempt to bypass the built-in OS security options. To log into the operating system, you must ensure that you require passwords, and the passwords are a minimum 14 characters. Strong passwords consist of a mix of uppercase, lowercase, digits, and special characters. Change passwords at least every 90 days. Use password history when possible so that users don't reuse the same password. Don't use the same password on multiple systems and sites. If possible, for operating systems and applications, you should lock the account or reboot the computer after a set number of failed login attempts. In Windows, you should consider changing the name of the local administrator account. The hacker will have to guess the name of the administrator account and the password. If it is not already, disable the guest account. By default, the guest account is disabled in Windows 10 and 11. People with the admin access should consider using two separate accounts. Daily user account, which is used for normal activities including surfing the internet and accessing emails. Administrator user account, which is used for administrative activities. When you need to perform administrative functions, you should use the RunAs options. To open a command prompt as an administrator, search for command prompt, right-click command prompt, and click Run as Administrator. When running commands at the command prompt, you can also use the Run As command. To open Computer Management, search for Computer Management, right-click Computer Management, and click Run as Administrator. You can right-click any executable file and run as administrator. Be careful that you verify that the executable file is a trusted executable file. Executable files from reputable vendors will often be digitally signed to prove who they came from and that they have not been tampered. To see if executable files is signed, open File Properties and look for the Digital Signature tab. User Account Control, or UAC, is a Windows security feature designed to protect the operating system from unauthorized changes. When changes to the system requires administrative level permission, UAC notifies the user, giving the opportunity to approve or deny the change. UAC improves the security of Windows devices by limiting the access from malicious code has to execute with administrative privilege. UAC empowers users to make informed decisions about actions that may affect the stability and security of their device. When a user tries to perform an action that requires administrative privileges, UAC triggers a consent prompt. If you're not an administrator, it will prompt you to log in as an administrator. The prompt notifies the user that a change is about to occur, asking for the permissions to proceed. If the user approves the change, the action is performed with the highest available privilege for that user. If the user doesn't approve the change, the action isn't performed and the application that requested the change is prevented from running. If you're installing software from a trusted and verified source, you're expecting the change and you can approve the changes. Otherwise, if you're just using your computer normally, such as checking email, surfing the internet, or running your applications, and you get prompted, you're not expecting the change and you should deny the change. UAC be configured from the control panel. It is highly recommended that you do not disable UAC. One solution to avoid UAC prompts is to add the account to local administrators, particularly when installing software. However, this should be used with caution to minimize security risk. For Active Directory user accounts, limit which systems a user can log on, and limit when a user can log on. When you're moving away from your computer, you need to get in the habit of locking your computer. It is also recommended to configure your operating system to have the screensaver activate and lock your screen after a certain amount of inactivity, where you will need to provide a username and password to access the session. The biggest advantage of mobile computers and devices is that they are very portable. However, this advantage also makes the mobile computers and devices susceptible to theft. Most portable devices and some expensive computer monitors have a special steel bracket security slot built into the case that allows a cable lock to be inserted into the slot and attached to an immovable object. If a cable lock is forcibly removed, the computer will have noticeable damage which may prevent resale and therefore discouraging theft. When not in use, the laptops, tablets, and portable storage can be placed into a safe or vault, which is a ruggedized steel box with a lock. Keep in mind that cable locks have relatively thin cables and are not designed for long-term protection. Can be easily cut with a cable or bolt cutters. Ensure that the desktop computers are also secure behind a locked door or in a secure area. BitLocker Drive Encryption is a data protection feature that encrypts the hard drive that addresses the threat of data theft or exposure from lost, stolen, or inappropriately decommissioned computers. BitLocker provides the maximum protection when used with TPM version 1.2 or later versions. Trusted Platform Module or TPM chip is a secure crypto processor that is designed to carry out cryptographic operations, including generating, storing, and limiting the use of cryptographic keys. BitLocker is not available with home editions of Windows 10 and 11, but is related to other versions of Windows 10 and 11. The Encrypted File System, or EFS, provides encryption for files. To keep your system as secure as possible, you need to apply security updates for operating systems and software updates, including browsers, in a timely manner after the updates are released. You also need to update firmware and drivers. Updates will address discovered vulnerabilities and will usually make the system more reliable. Along with updates, you also need to use an up-to-date anti-malware package from a reputable company to help detect and remove malware and to help to address discovered vulnerabilities. In addition, you should use a personal firewall, which may be built into the operating system or your anti-malware package. Personal firewall provides monitoring incoming and outgoing network traffic, prevent unauthorized access to the computer by blocking malicious incoming traffic, control which applications on your computer are allowed to access the internet, help protect against malware, and detect intrusion. Don't open suspicious attachments or click unusual links in messages. Browse the web safely by avoiding visiting sites that offer potential illicit content. Stay away from pirated material, including avoiding streaming or downloading movies, music, books, or other applications that do not come from trusted sources. The sites and content may include malware. Don't use USBs or other external devices unless you own them. To avoid infection by malware and viruses, ensure that all external devices either belong to you or come from a reliable source. Companies may also consider using GPOs or similar user rights to prevent the use of USB devices. Personal Identifiable Information, or PII, is data that could potentially identify a specific individual. It includes full names, maiden names, aliases, contact information, identification numbers such as social security numbers, passport numbers, driver's license numbers, and account numbers, biometric data, date of birth, medical information, financial information, and online identifiers. To protect PII, you should do everything that has already been discussed, including keeping your computer up to date, using an up-to-date anti-malware package, using a personal firewall, use strong passwords, and secure physical access. Be aware of your surroundings and the people around you. Consider using privacy filters. Avoid having monitors face windows, hallways, and cameras. When transmitting personal information over the internet, make sure that the website is using HTTPS instead of HTTP and has a valid certificate. An invalid certificate should show an error on the address bar. Only use reputable websites when providing PII. When using wireless Wi-Fi networks, be sure to use strong encryption such as WPA2 or WPA3. Make sure you use any known secure access point. Make sure you have a backup of important data in case of computer failure. Similar to passwords, you should not send PII over email. Instead, see if who you're sending to has web service for uploading PII or use a secure file sharing service. If you need to send PII over email, you should, before sending, verify that you're sending to a trusted recipient and verify that the recipient's email address is correct. Encrypt the email using encrypted email services or encryption tools. Password the document containing PII and share the password with the intended recipient via a separate secured channel. Avoid PII in subject lines. Limit information by only sending the necessary PII. Companies should have a training awareness program and establish policies and procedures about sending PII via email. Make sure that operating system's auto-run and autoplay options are disabled. Auto-run is already disabled since Windows 7. To disable autoplay, open Settings, Bluetooth and Devices, Autoplay. Disabling unnecessary services in Windows can help improve security by reducing the attack surface and minimizing potential vulnerabilities. However, it's essential to exercise caution when disabling services, as some are necessary for the proper functioning of the operating system and installed applications. Disabling the remote registry service prevents remote users from modifying the registry on your computer, reducing the risk of unauthorized access and potential registry-based attacks. Telnet is an outdated and insecure protocol for remote access. If you don't require it, you can disable the Telnet service to prevent potential security risks associated with its use. If you don't use your computer as an FTP server, you can disable the FTP server service to prevent unauthorized access to files via FTP. If you don't need remote desktop functionality, consider disabling the Remote Desktop Services service to prevent potential unauthorized access to your computer. Windows Remote Management, or WinRM, allows remote management of Windows-based systems. If you don't need remote management capabilities, you can disable the Windows Remote Management service to reduce the attack surface. Similar to WinRM, if you don't require Windows Remote Management or WS Management, you can disable it to enhance security. If you don't use Bluetooth devices with your computer, you can disable the Bluetooth support service to reduce the risk of Bluetooth-related attacks. If you don't use a printer or print sharing, you can disable the print spooler service to mitigate potential printer-related security risks. If you don't share media over the network using Windows Media Player, you can disable the Windows Media Player network sharing service to reduce network-related security risk. If you don't use your computer to share its internet connections with other devices, you can disable the internet connection sharing or ICS service to minimize potential risks associated with internet sharing. Microsoft and other operating systems use Linked Local Multicast Name Resolution, or LLMNR, and Apple and Linux systems use Multicast DNS, or MDNS, for local name resolution when DNS fails. These protocols are susceptible to interception and spoofing due to their unauthenticated broadcast nature over UDP. To disable LLMNR and/or MDNS in Windows, you will have to use Group Policy Object or GPOs, modify the registry, or modify a firewall rule. Make sure you have backups of all important information and programs if your computer fails. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Question: what is used to encrypt an entire hard drives in Windows? Answer: BitLocker. Question: what is used in Windows to ensure users are prompted or warned when an installation takes place in Windows? Answer: UAC. Question: you want to make sure that the night maintenance crew cannot access the computers. What 2 things can you do to prevent their access? Choose 2 answers. Enable BitLocker and restrict login times. Question: how can you prevent users from enabling virtual technology on their laptop? Answer: disable virtual technology in the BIOS setup program and using UEFI password. Question: how can you ensure that malware does not automatically install from a USB drive? Choose 2 answers. Answer: disable auto-run, restrict user permissions. For more information, visit these sites. In summary, you should enable the admin setup program so that unauthorized people will not make any changes to the BIOS setup program. To log into the operating system, you must ensure that you require passwords and that the passwords are minimum 14 characters. Strong passwords consist of a mix of uppercase, lowercase, digits, and special characters, and passwords are changed at least every 90 days. People with admin access should consider using 2 separate accounts. When you need to perform administrative functions, you should use the RunAs options. User Account Control, or UAC, is a Windows security feature designed to protect the operating system from unauthorized changes. When you're moving away from your computer, you need to get in the habit of locking your computer. It is also recommended to configure your operating system to have the screensaver activate and lock your screen after a certain amount of inactivity where you will need to provide a username and password to access the session. BitLocker Drive Encryption is a data protection feature that encrypts the hard drive that addresses the threats of data theft or exposure from lost, stolen, or inappropriately decommissioned computers. To keep your system as secure as possible, you need to apply security updates for operating systems and software updates, including browsers, in a timely manner after the updates are released. Along with updates, you'll need to use an up-to-date anti-malware package from a reputable company to help detect and remove malware and help with address and discovered vulnerabilities. Personally identifiable information, or PII, is data that would potentially identify a specific individual. Make sure that the operating system's auto-run and autoplay options are disabled. Disabling unnecessary services in Windows can help improve security by reducing the attack surface and minimizing potential vulnerabilities. Thank you for watching this video. The next video will be Security, Part 11, Protecting Mobile Devices. If you have not already, don't forget to subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel. Thank you.